Hello and thank you for joining us on the last edition of Journalist Hangouts this week. I'm Benga Oreshegun. Today on the program, Atiku, Peter Obi, Amaechi and other opposition leaders reject new Electoral Act, demand fresh amendment as Presidency hits back. Governor Fintiri of Adamawa State announces defection from PDP to the APC, moves with commissioners and political appointees. And late on the show, DSS arrests mastermind of deadly 2025 Ayetoro Kiri Ekwa Church attack, Shafiu Usman. Well, I'll be hanging out with Charles Ideho and Kaide Ladende. Journalist Hangout starts right now. Now let's begin the conversation. Peace appears to be eluding the recently signed amended Electoral Act 2026. In the latest reaction to the new legislation, major opposition parties in the country have rejected the Electoral Act, calling on the National Assembly to begin a fresh review that reflects the will of Nigerians. At a joint press briefing in Abuja, opposition leaders like Atiku Abubakar, Peter Obi, Rotimi Amaechi and others labeled the act as anti-democratic. The national chairman of the New Nigeria People's Party, Ahmed Ajuji, criticized several provisions of the law signed by President Bola Tinubu on the 18th of February. They claimed that they are intended to undermine the people's will in the 2027 general elections and pave the way for a one-party state. All right, gentlemen, here we are. Charles, the Electoral Act 2026. But let's talk to me. Why are the opposition figures against it, and how valid are their concerns?
Their values are concerned, but also their concerns are valid. Sorry, the other way around. Yeah. But I think it's a bit late because I would have expected when the issue generated so much furore. It was in the public domain. We discussed a bit of it here when there was this talk about whether it's going to be read time or no read time and all that. It took some time to be discussed. So I would have expected that what they are asking for now is to ask that the act, also the bill should not be signed into law. Not after they have been signed to, they're now calling for a review. Okay. For me, I think it's a bit late, because even some of the issues they are looking at are the things we have looked at before even the assent of the president was sought and got it. So I would expect that now that it has been done, the letters of the law have been spelled out. They are talking about specifically about the section 60/3. They look at it and another section again that's but they are thinking that that section has given unfettered powers to the electoral officers to do whatever they wish to do. But I said no, that's not correct. The thing is that there's going to be electronic transmission, but no real time. That of course that has been we have dispensed with that. But they are not saying that is the proviso that in case there is a problem with internet, then the form EC8 can now be used. So that's where they have the problem. They are saying that proviso has given unfettered, that's too much power to the electoral officers to now begin to send it. They feel that when you do that, then the party in power could just use that as a tool to say, okay, they're going to be, shoring up their support base. But I think for me, I think it's too late. Okay. They should have, this call should have come before now. Before the assent, there was a long time. It's not just something they did one day, then next day they think we got assent for it.
Some of them joined in the protest.
The process, yeah, exactly.
You think that it was too late?
Even once at that time, they would, what I expected to have done is to insist that the bill should not be signed into law. Now it's been signed into law. We're now calling for a review. Now, mind you, INEC has come up with this timetable, and there's also a provision of the law that it has to be about 360 days before the next election. So if you now call for review, you now go back again to tinker with that aspect. What happens to the timetable? Which means we're now be running foul of the law.
You talked about section 60/3. Now, the opposition figures, they claim that particular section of the Electoral Act could be used to manipulate electronic transmission. How credible are these claims raised by these opposition figures?
I wouldn't know whether I should call it a disclaimer, but just to put it clearly.
Okay.
the discussion we're having, pardon my word, is pure intellectual.
Okay.
He has stated it clearly. It is too late. It is too late, to the extent that even the recent decision by INEC, they have to quote when the Electoral Act came into being that affected the rescheduling and the timetable. In fact, if you check the words used by INEC, they were not even using the words like Ramadan or no Ramadan. They have to, because you don't take such decisions on such sentiment.
Exactly.
You understand? So the Electoral Act is already in force. And so going for a repeal means that the take-off date will have to be fast-forward. I mean, you have to be taken to that date again.
Exactly.
So this is purely intellectual. Let's just quickly put that caveat.
Okay.
Now, talking intellectually, I did say here on another program, in fact, the news, that for me, I felt what should have, prompted huge debate should have been the idea of nomination of candidates.
Okay.
Which this ADC is also bringing up.
It was part of the issues
And
raised.
Exactly.
NFP,
Indirect primary has been taken off, and you did not say anything. Parties did not say anything. Why I'm saying that it was too late is for me to establish that parliamentary politics is politics on its own. There is no apology that ABC is in the majority. There is no apology that Labour Party do not have enough members to canvass their case. There is no apology that ADC do not have enough members to canvass their case. So it is politics of number. The majority will have their way, and why the minority will have their say. And so this is mere talk, part of my language. So back to the issue, what I feel, which is intellectual, is that the indirect or the direct and the consensus is going to be quite burdensome and expensive for a party like ADC.
and the other party.
And the other party.
Opposition.
Because in this case now, you're dealing with, yes, and the other opposition. In this case, you're dealing with all members must vote. All members, registered members, will have to vote. The people in power, most of these elected officials can afford, to mobilize people that will vote for them. So what is going to happen to this opposition who would have preferred the indirect, which we call the delegate system?
Or the
colleges.
Yes,
so when you will have people who will come out and vote for the candidate of their choice, it could be 14 to 24 or this. So now you're dealing with every member has to vote. And the A4, which is similar to what we call the direct primary, is a case where it also promotes some kind of intimidation. Because if you're not voting for me, there's every tendency that when I get the ticket, I'm not going to consider you. But when it is secret open, you have voted, nobody knows who you vote for, they'll just count the number and you know who emerges. So for me, I think ADC has a point.
So you think limiting, according to that section 84, limiting it to direct primaries and consensus will affect internal democracy in the party?
That word is too direct. So let me have.
So that's what I'm asking.
So
because those are one of the
indirect also has its negative influence. For example, indirect promotes dollarization of the internal democracy. Most delegates, they come out very fat. So I'm not praising indirect, but I'm saying that the system appears more credible, in my words, than direct. Most times we have attended primaries in direct, where they say 1, 2, from 17, they move to 30. And don't tell me that INEC officials can go round to all the polling stations. For example, when you're having governorship, there's no how INEC can be represented everywhere. So for me, it is what it is. The opposition should rather wait for 2031 when this amendment will scale through. But for now, this is the document for 2027 election.
Now, looking at what he said, let's look at past experiences. Is indirect primaries, more democratic or transparent, in Nigeria?
No, it is not. Indirect is cheaper in terms of funding.
Because it looks as if he's in support of indirect primaries.
No, but before I answer that question.
that's what I'm getting. That's my interpretation.
but for me, it's usually cheaper for parties to run than what he said. Because, getting delegates, all of them, you have to... I've been a delegate before. I know what it took to get even us to Abuja at that time, when I tinker with little politics back in Edo State and all that. So it's very expensive to do direct. because you are going to be looking for a crowd, and everybody has to be everybody. But if it's indirect, what they call the college system, which of course American practices, then you first of all do this one in voting to be quite effective. But when you say direct has to do everybody, the whole crowd.
So you're not looking at it from inclusion.
No, inclusion is that
everybody will be a part of the decision process.
Where we got to this point, I think the National Assembly should have left that to the parties, because
for the parties to decide
the choice, the method, the process, the modus operandi, whatever they should have used, they should have left it at the behest of the party to pick up. Because when you tell the party, you have boxed them into a corner right now. It's either you do this or you do this. Then consensus itself also has a lot of problems. Because you say, the issue of look at, don't also forget that even the kind of Kwankwaso type of thing, not Kwankwaso, what's his name? Sule Lamido, that have been taken off. They want to do consensus. So if you're saying this guy out, you have to do consensus, then litigation will also be plenty.
All right, the other side of this conversation, what's your assessment of the presidency's response, to the criticism of the Electoral Act 2026? Because the presidency has hit back.
Quite on point, because this is the National Assembly debated issues, took it to the president to sign. It's not the president that did this job in the first place. So putting accusing finger on the president, it's definitely, there's no logic in there. There's no logic there, number one. Number two, when the National Assembly was having public hearing on it, what did these figures do? Good. You might talk of Peter Obi, you might talk of Amaechi, who also were part of protests, which I call, self-help. Because in the real sense of politics, where the real politics starts from is, what are you guys doing to have, lawmakers who are members of your party? Because that's where you're supposed to fight. So when you talk about the inclusion, are you saying that if I have 360 lawmakers who were elected from different constituencies, are you saying ordinary people are excluded? No. Are you saying 109 senators who are speaking on behalf of the people, are you saying they're excluded? And don't be deceived that because some people went to the National Assembly protesting, probably 200, I don't know the numbers, Nigerians have spoken. No. That you don't have time to go to National Assembly or you agree with National Assembly does not exclude you. So I am saying that the presidency needed to speak because he was being fingered, he was being accused when he has no business. He cannot interrupt what the lawmakers have done. It's only when it's a threat to democracy that he can decide not to sign. And probably they want to also hoodwink him or find a way of blackmailing him. That's when you can say, no, I'm not going to put pen on paper. But for me, if they want to address their grievances, they should take it to National Assembly. I don't know why National Assembly did not debate this rigorously. But maybe we should wait for National Assembly to also respond, because it means they did not do, clause by clause debate.
Okay, but because
went to transmission issue.
No.
Okay, first of all, let me have your opinion on the presidency's
for me,
response.
I think even I run a radio station, managed actually. But when he also came up, callers were at Dagger's drum with the president. So I had to ask the backroom boys to put me on air so that I could clear the whole thing. See, if the president hadn't signed that when he signed it, would have affected the timetable. People are not
because someone said, why did the president sign it so quickly?
Hastily. No, the president couldn't have done otherwise because the timetable is there and it's a matter of the law.
Exactly.
That you have to, once you have, it's about 360 days before the next election, you have to announce it. So INEC has a window. And you cannot go against the law. So when they now had done all they wanted to do and they presented the president will now say, okay, go back again. Then there will be a problem with the timetable, which is against the law, the electoral law. So the president, for me, I just said the president, for me, did not hastily sign that. He had to do it as at the time he did it, in order to, in conformity with the letters of the law. So the operation of the law and all of that. So if the operation of the law had made it a bit flexible. The president could have maybe said, okay, why don't you go back? He could wait for it, but again, the time was very tight. And not only that, then our Muslim brother was also talking about it falling into Ramadan and all that. Now they fast-forwarded it to January instead of February. So the whole thing very, 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 very dicey. So when the president signed it, he did it in order not to, go against the law.
Yeah, the law.
Because the law says that there has to be, the days have been counted,
days,
and it has to be. So signing it was in conformity with the provisions of the extant laws that set up the issue of elections in this country.
I mean, most of the opposition figures, they are against this. But the request for a fresh amendment, 2026, does it have legal merit?
Where it may, because laws are always subjected to think you have to go back again.
When it's been assented to, can it still be?
But in this case, just as I said, it's too late. If you do that, what happens to the date of the election? If you do that, are you going to say we are going to be running the election in April, or then when the handover day is May 29? So the dates are already there, very tight. The windows are tight, very tight. So for now, I think I will appeal to the opposition. What they need to do is that let them look for money wherever, and then make sure they have men and women at the polling unit as their agents, so that they will be there for their. For now, let us just run this through. Then if there are things that we can quarrel over in the course of time, then we go back again to the drawing board. Look, this is not the first time we're having an amendment. Electoral, after when we started this thing, no, this is not even the third one. It started in 2001. There was a 2002. There was 2003. And then before 2005. Then 2010, 2015, and so on. So it's about 7 or 8 times, if I'm not mistaken.
No, I'm referring to when the president assented to.
No, I'm even talking about the process of these amendments of the Electoral Act. Electoral Act started out about 2001. Then we have 2002, 2003, 2005. Then 2010. 2010 lasted to 2015, and so on and so on. So we could also look at it. Then once we do it, then we could look at areas of encumbrances. We could just pick them out. Okay, why don't we go for maybe 2027 or 2031 amendment, and then we do that. But for now, I think it's too late.
Thinking, if two of you can see through my mind. Now, this is about the political class.
Yeah, that's right.
This is about their survival
and interest and all that.
All right, just hold on. We have Fee calling in from the United States. Fee, go ahead. Fee, go ahead. Hello? We can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, the electoral law and or amendments, as they so called, then and the opposition, the so-called opposition in Nigeria, from all angles I can see is that, is it whatever the opposition is saying, does that mean that is the majority opinion? So because when they say Nigeria is not inclusive, whatever Atiku and the co-op said, that means that's exactly what those people in the assembly, they were being chosen by people from their constituency, various lists to senatorial, whatever, and they start to debate. And your people are not there to say, okay, no, we are not going to sign, we are not going to support this. And they argue it left and right. Democracy might not be the best government. I used to tell people it's not the best way of governing people. But it's a game of figure.
Yeah.
Okay. If I have 2, you have 1, my idea might be wrong, but since I have the majority, we cannot go otherwise. Look at what happened here in America here. We voted. Yeah? People voted, majority voted, but the Electoral College favored Donald Trump.
That's it.
Yes, that's all. And that's it. And he becomes the president. Today, if he pass any law, he put it into the House, and the House debated, and they have the majority, they pass it to the law.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. All the way from the United States. All right, just in 10 seconds.
I think you just took the word out of my mouth. It is the political class.
Okay.
And if the political class lose out from the ideal logical process of voting at the National Assembly, they resort to the media. And that is doing a press conference, we reject it. Their rejection does not invalidate the document.
Okay.
So please work with the document, plan for 2031. If they will remain in the opposition, if they will remain in the party, let me not say if they will remain in the opposition. If they will remain in the party, let them strategize and have their people at the National Assembly
to have
do not invalidate what legitimate lawmakers have done.
Absolutely.
I agree with him. As I said, if you don't try out any law that have been enacted, you won't find the areas that you have issues and challenges. So let's look at it. When we used it to prosecute the next election, whatever areas of challenges we have, then we can now call for another amendment again, which of course will now invalidate these areas of concern. Yeah.
All right, gentlemen, beautiful conversation. Moving straight to our next topic. Now, it's been long coming.